Before we get started with today's interview, just a quick reminder, click the thumbs up, make sure you subscribe and ding the bell so that you don't miss any of the great interviews that we have coming up. Now, on to today's interview. Welcome back, everybody. Today, I have a really special guest with me. Today, my guest is composer Wynn-Anne Rossi. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am delighted to have you here.
I'm glad to be here.
Excellent. The first piece of yours I'd like to talk about today is Purring Cat. And this is a really delightful piece. I had a ton of fun sight reading through it. And it was reminiscent to me of some of the Scandi composers like Olafur Arnaldsson or Niels Fram. And can you tell us a little bit about not only what inspired this piece, but how you went about putting it together?
You know, when I start a piece, I always start with a feel. These books, the Daily Comfort books, were written during COVID. And it was a tough time. Oh my gosh, we were all so isolated. There was so much political unrest. It made me feel like I needed to bring the bigger world into a smaller, more precious box, which is everyday living and the beauties that happen every day that you wake up. And we have a cat, Mario, and just brings me so much joy. So when I think of a purring cat, there is nothing more beautiful than a purring cat. The sound is lovely. The feeling, the rumble against your chest, it is just the best. So you start with that soft, not very active moment of just that rumble. And that's, of course, how the piece starts, with a rumble. And that second, and then you're like, okay, where does that, I can't do a rumble the entire piece. This will not go into a collection. So I'm like, okay, so I go from the rumble to the feel, which makes your heart bubble up and feel love, which of course is the da-da-da-da-da-da-da. The movement in the line of the music is about the feeling of love that is deep in your heart. And I love those minor seconds. They're all over my writing. If you haven't noticed, they're everywhere. I love minor seconds. So, and it also gives you a place to rumble from. You start with a small idea and it gives you the ability to start so small and then trust the process of your inner ear, where it's going to move to.
I love how in your creative composition toolbox books, you talk about really thinking about using a variety of different intervals in your compositions. And I thought that you did a beautiful job of showing that compositional toolbox technique in this piece, because I noticed you started with the major second, and then in the second measure, we get a beautiful series of thirds and have an opportunity to use that beautiful wrist motion and that technique. And then you kind of oscillate between seconds and thirds. And then finally, when we get to measure 11, now we see some fourths for the first time. And I think that that's just so cool. And then you go back to thirds and then back to seconds. And so there's this wonderful feeling of expansion and contraction as we're playing this piece. And then finally, when we get to the very end of the piece in measure 23, we have a fifth for the first time, 23 and 24, and then you end with a sixth. Was that something that was kind of deliberate as you constructed this piece, this feeling of getting a little bit bigger, or is this just a happy coincidence and your excellent compositional instinct?
It is the beauty, Sam, of feeling. I am not aware when I'm composing of what I'm doing. It is the trusting of the process, and I think that patterns come naturally to human beings. No, I just listen and see where it takes me. It always makes me feel so humble when somebody like you comes along and like breaks it up and says, wow, you did this and this and this. And I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool.
Well, I think it's a testament to your excellent musical and compositional instincts that you have constructed something like this. And that it's also a testament to your own ability to trust your compositional instincts and how much you've developed them, so that without even trying or thinking about it, you build these awesome things into this piece, and you build these wonderful musical moments into the piece. And it's part of why I think we all really love your, teaching and playing your compositions.
Thank you. Well, listening, I talk about listening a lot. And listening is so much more important in composition than speaking. Even though you're speaking as you're writing it down, composition is a listening process. I've equated it to a tunnel, and you're in this tunnel, and the tunnel is completely empty, maybe dark, and like an electric butterfly comes through. And you take the butterfly, and then you follow the butterfly. You don't speak when you're composing. You listen, and I like to think that's true when you're working on a piece. When you're playing a Bach piece, we shouldn't be thinking all the time about what we're saying through the piece. We should be listening to what Bach is saying and following where he's going and trusting it.
Well, Wynn-Anne, thank you so much for taking time to talk with us today and share your wisdom and your insights and your knowledge. We're so incredibly grateful for you to be here today and give so freely of your time. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Sam. And I hope we get to keep contact a little bit more.